Hey intros, Miss Clavine again. So this is specific to our baking class. I'm going to talk to you guys about baker's percentage, okay? So Mr. Bonnu has already taught you how to convert a recipe. This follows that, okay? This is specific only to baking. So number one rule here, do not forget this, write it down, whatever you have to do. Flour in a recipe is typically your largest amount, your anchor ingredient. So it is always equal to 100%. That doesn't change ever. If you have two kinds of flours in the recipe, it's still 100%. You add those together. I'll show you that after, okay? Now, if you were given a recipe like this with your percentages next to your ingredients, I will always give you your amount of flour. So what that's going to be here, 3,000 grams, also known as 3 kilograms, but we're going to stick to the grams, okay? So I'm always going to give you your amount of flour. That 3,000 grams equals 100%. Now, if you're given an equation like this, what you want to do is find out the amount of the other ingredients. So instead of having one conversion factor, think of it this way. We have multiple conversion factors. 5%, 3%, 6, 10, 12, and 40. Those are our conversion factors. So our first step is to convert those to a decimal, okay? So 5% in a decimal, we divide by 100. So that equals 0.05. And we do that the whole way down, okay? So step one, change your percentages to decimals. And that's going to give us multiple conversion factors, okay? So your decimal is moving 2 spots. The biggest mistake most of my students make when they're converting one of these recipes is that they don't move the decimal space enough or not at all, okay? For example, when converting 40%, make sure you move it 2 spots. It's 0.4, not 0.04, okay? Now, instead of having one conversion factor, we have multiple. And every single one of these conversion factors relates back to flour. Everything always relates back to the flour, okay? What you do, you take your amount of flour, 3,000 grams, and you multiply it by each conversion factor, okay? 3,000 grams multiplied by 0.05, do it on a calculator, whatever you gotta do, should equal 150 grams. Then you skip down to your next ingredient. Salt is our next ingredient. 0.03 multiplied by your flour. Once again, everything goes back to the flour. So that will equal 90 grams. 3,000 grams multiplied by our yeast. 0.06. That will equal 180 grams. And so on and so forth. So you're multiplying each percentage back to your amount of flour until you have your finished recipe. And it will look like this. Okay? So every single time it relates back to flour because flour is always 100%. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about it in an opposite way here. I'm going to get the eraser. What if I wasn't given the amount of flour? But I'm given my percentages. You're always going to be given your percentages, okay? So I'm going to do a quick example here. Say, for example, I was given my amount of sugar. Sugar equaled 300 grams. And it was 10% of a recipe. So first step first, we change this to our decimal, which is 0.1. And what's the number one rule for flour? It's always equal to 100%. Always. Now this might look like something else you have done in an earlier grade of math, okay? Think of it this way. We're solving for x. So what does that look like? Cross multiply and divide. 300 multiplied by 1,000 divided by 10. Cross multiply and divide. That's one way to do it. You're going to get your answer that way. Or you simply take your amount of sugar, 300 grams, and divide it by your conversion factor, 0.1. And that will also give you your answer. So two ways to do it, but you're still going to get the same answer, okay? You're not going to get a lot of these examples, but I still needed to show you how you would get your flour if you didn't have that number there. Because the number one rule, always equals 100%. Okay, one more thing before we go here. Like I said a minute ago, what if we had multiple kinds of flour? We're going to make a recipe that has whole wheat flour as well. Okay, so we have 600 grams of whole wheat flour, and we have 1,200 grams of regular bread flour, white flour, okay? Flour equals 100%. So what number do we relate? What's our anchor number here? We add them together. So they equal 1,800 grams, which still equals 100%. That never changes, okay? So that's our number one rule here. So that's pretty much all I have for baker's percentage for you right now. If you have any questions about this, email me, we'll figure it out. But that's it, guys. Thanks.